Warning, this video may contain spoilers for the TV show or movie that we discuss in this video. If you have not yet watched the TV show or movie that this video is about, please come back to the video at a later time after you have watched the content that was discussed. You have been warned. How's it going, everybody? This is Rob of Novakast, back with some more of content for you guys. And I know that, like, on occasion I review TV shows, and I figured, you know what, on occasion, why don't I just talk about movies, you know? Because, in some sense, movies have been very intriguing to me. And when I wait for some of the newer stuff to come out, I thought, why not go and talk about some stuff that, honestly, I've seen before, that I probably haven't even talked about. And what better to start this new trend for the videos than talk about Signs. Now, I know some people are going to roll their eyes. Some people are like, say, oh, this is such a horrible movie. Oh, this is, you know, this is garbage. M. Night Shyamalan is a hack, yada, yada, yada. I've heard it before. And honestly, to each his own. You know, people who hate it are going to hate it, and people who like it are going to like it. And I will say that there are moments that I liked, some moments that are kind of laughable. A good, I don't know if you could call it parody of what happens in the movie would probably be Nostalgia Critic Signs, which was in some way a hilarious video. But when it comes down to it, this is just giving my thoughts, and I will be going, like, with videos like this, I'll probably end up going step by step on what happens in the movie to talk about it. So, to kind of start off, freaking A, it starts off with Mel Gibson, who just wakes up and ends up going into the cornfield that he apparently owns, for his character anyway, with Joaquin Phoenix following right after him to find his kids, because apparently his kids, instead of, like, and this was really weird. I never understood this, because he's walking past his kids' doors and he's about to check on them, but doesn't, and then proceeds to go into the bathroom, and it's very faint, but if you listen very closely, there's a freaking child scream. In fact, they sometimes have it in subtitles. And that's when he decides, okay, I need to go check on the kids. It's like, why didn't he check on the kids? I'm guessing for tension, but at the same time, it's like, why didn't you look for the kids? It made no sense. So yeah, him and Joaquin Phoenix end up going and trying to find the kids in the cornfield. Sure enough, they do. And they also uncover crop circles, which is intriguing to both of them. While Mel Gibson is looking for, and right after, while Mel Gibson's looking for, or at least waiting for the cops, the kids are trying to get one of their German Shepherds to drink water. The cop shows up, spews exposition, whatever, or random plot dump, whatever, and they end up having to go after the kids again, because Mel Gibson can't hear his kids, and finds out that the son had to kill the German Shepherd because it was about to kill the daughter. So after that uncomfortable scene, we are treated with another scene, which I'll say this is actually maybe one of those good, like, quick moments, because in some sense and I know that if you watch Nostalgia Critic's video, he goes off by saying, like, this is around the time you find out that when they go into town, which we're going to talk about in a second, where they spew exposition about some of the character traits of all the characters. But I think that when it comes to the character traits of Mel Gibson being a man of faith, or lack of, is mentioned way early on like, especially when in the moment where he says, "I don't hear my children," after around the time that the son kills the dog, because he tells the cop, because the cop keeps calling him father. He tells the cop, "Please don't call me father." And in the next scene after the dog being killed by the son, it's dark, and you see the daughter, who wakes Mel Gibson up, and they have a quick moment. And I would say that this is one of those really great moments where you start getting more and more of an idea of what's going on, like with the fact that his wife might have passed away. And the daughter asks something along the lines of, "Why do you talk to yourself?" Or, "Why do you talk to your mom why do you talk to mom by yourself?" And he's all like, "Because it makes me feel better." And she asks, does she ever answer back? He replies with a no. And she asks, she doesn't reply to me either, or something along those lines. And it was a really kind of sad moment, kind of quick, upsetting moment, because what he's in some way what he's going through, and it's immediately brought up, or immediately the tone is really immediately changed afterwards when Mel looks out the window and sees a dark silhouette on top of his barn, or one of the buildings for his farmhouse. So, and this was a really strange moment. I kind of have to laugh to some extent every time I see it, where Mel Gibson and Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix run around screaming the entire building to try to scare off whoever is outside the house. And again, it's a funny freaking scene where they're trying to find out who this is, but it's too quick for them. So they proceed to eventually, like, after they run the house, they both meet up, and it turns out that this thing jumped on top of the house, or back on top of the house, and then over them into a swing set and back into the cornfield. And this ends up bringing the cop back, and in turn, while they're being interviewed by the cop, there's this whole news break or broadcast about the crop circles, apparently, that they're popping up all over the world. And I love that there are points where they're like, I will say, before the crop circle thing, I love that they try to rationalize like what they saw, with the fact that it makes, in some sense, it makes no sense, because the cop starts like spewing, "Oh, it must have been like some female gymnast from Russia or something like that." And Joaquin Phoenix, I love the kind of sarcasm he gives, like excluding the possibility that a female Scandinavian Olympian was running around outside our house last night. What else could be the possibility? I love that little moment where he kind of he's kind of snarky and kind of sarcastic, but because after that you have the whole broadcast with the crop circles, and then right after that they go into town. Now I'll say that this is one of those moments that was really intriguing, because you have each and every person of the family separate, and you get some idea of their backstory. For instance, the quirks, like the son and daughter go into a bookstore where the son's trying to order a book on aliens, and you get an idea of their little quirks. Whereas Joaquin Phoenix's character, he goes to a military, or I'm assuming army enlistment, and is about to sign up, and the general, or not general, but the recruiter, recognizes him as a famous baseball player, and somebody who apparently who has been associated with Joaquin Phoenix's character knows some of his quirks in terms of playing baseball. And then after that, we have Mel Gibson at the for sorry, oh friggin' at a pharmacy, and he's also dealing with situations involving the medication, and person calling him father and wanting to clear her conscience, which I love his reaction right after, because apparently she does a lot of cursing. He's like, I don't want you hanging out with this girl ever again. It was hilarious. So they all meet up at this pizza joint, and lo and behold, the guy who always cameos in almost every one of his videos, M. Night Shyamalan, shows up, and for a brief moment makes eye contact with Mel Gibson's character, and then drives off. Later on, we get the famous baby monitor scene, where, for those who don't know, this is when they first start making contact with the aliens, so to speak. Even though we all know that the aliens don't want contact, they just want to freaking kill everybody. But they start picking up something on a baby monitor, and it sounds like talking. So they get the bright idea, or at least the son gets the bright idea, that maybe we should hold it up high and see if we get a clearer signal. And sure enough, they do, for a brief second, and then proceeds to cut off. Mel Gibson, later on, around nighttime, ends up going into the cornfield, and in some sense goading whatever's in there, and to some extent he does get a response, although just the leg of the alien, which was hilarious, and that kind of scares him to run out of the cornfield and go back to the house, which she says, let's watch TV, because they had the TV off at all the entire time. So they do end up turning the TV back on to see what's going on, and sure enough, in several points of the world, the skies are littered with lights, and it amazes everybody. After this scene, we get I will say probably one of the best moments of Mel Gibson, and I wish people like Doug Walker, or the Nostalgia Critic, would have talked at least about this one, and that was the scene with Mel talking about. Yeah, I'm so tired, but anyways, Mel giving this great performance for this dialogue about people come into two groups, and I gotta say it's probably one of the greatest character moments of this movie. Is you kind of see where he's at, where he used to be a man of faith, and used blind faith to deal with some of the issues that are in the day-to-day, but in some sense it may be in the other category, where they're just taking everything to chance and are afraid of what might happen. In fact, Mel Gibson asks, or Joaquin Phoenix's character asks, so which side are you? And Mel Gibson, I guess, made this dialogue to try to comfort Joaquin Phoenix's character. And Mel's like, do you feel comforted? And Joaquin's like, yes, I do. And Mel is like, then what does it matter? As if, him, like, how he feels, it doesn't really, he's trying to push that aside for others. And deep down we know that he has no faith in anything due to previous trauma. So after that scene, we get a brief, and by the way, the movie itself is littered with quick moments of a flashback of Mel Gibson's wife till the very end, where we see the final picture. But Mel wakes up the next day and finds Joaquin Phoenix in the closet. No innuendos there. He is apparently did it to, and he has the TV, and he did it so that way the kids weren't obsessed, even though he has become obsessed himself. And he talks about apparently a bird flying into the sky, or was flying in the sky, apparently hit something and fell to the ground. Now there's actually a deleted scene where you see a car drive by and you see the exact bird that they're talking about, and it's interesting that they, or at least it's weird that they deleted a scene like that. But yeah, they deleted it. So after talking to Joaquin Phoenix's character, Mel proceeds to get a call from M. Night Shyamalan's character, just saying father, and then hearing what sounds like a skirmish. And Mel's character is worried about something happening, so he proceeds to go to their household. What ends up happening after that, Mel's character goes to M. Night Shyamalan's character. I'll just call him M's character, and this is the last scene with him anyways, where he's in his car, his things are packed, and it looks like he's injured. And he gives this dialogue about how he's never fell asleep driving before, and it's painted. I will say, to some extent, it's if it wasn't clear earlier, it's clear now that he was the one that accidentally killed his wife. And he talks about how he never fell asleep driving before, never since that whole occurrence, and he acts as if it was meant to be, like something like that was meant to happen. Which honestly, I don't think that's the best thing to say to a reverend's wife, or a reverend who just lost his wife to a driver that fell asleep. But you know, to each his own, I guess. I will, and something intriguing is I found out that apparently, when they shot this scene, apparently, what was it? I think M. Night Shyamalan's grandfather passed away. So apparently there was a lot of tension for this particular scene. So Mel is about to enter the house. After M. Night Shyamalan pretty much said, "Don't open my pantry, Father. I found one of them in there, locked him in." Mel's about to enter the house, and then we transition to Joaquin Phoenix, who gets a news broadcast from Brazil, I believe it was, and you're following this cameraman and the bunch of kids at this birthday party. I think it was a birthday party, but anyways, they're trying to figure out what's going on. Mel's watching, like, getting closer and closer to the freaking screen, and you see something moving within this shrubbery. Then all of a sudden, an alien comes out, and its skin color, or its skin, it like changes to whatever it is behind it. So you start to think, okay, these things are able to some extent have camouflage, which would explain why they weren't able to see it clearly at night. So, and Mel is freaking horrified by this. So what ends up happening next, and this is intriguing, Mel ends up going into the house, and when he gets in there, he sees the pantry and something kind of pacing inside it. Now, at first, he tries to, thinking it's just a normal human being, says hello. It stops dead in its tracks, and then he starts saying something. And I thought this was very campy. He's like, "The police are here. I'm with them. I'm a police officer." And he's kind of like, and it was kind of weird because it made me think of like movies like Lethal Weapon where he was a cop. Gosh, I love that movie. But he ends up trying to find out what's inside. And this was a really the way he goes about it is really interesting, because at first he can't see anything, so he proceeds to grab a knife off a counter and use its reflection to try and see if there's anything, but nothing shows up. So he then proceeds to go out. Now, And this is really interesting because he ends up going out and then proceeds to walk back inside at double the speed, grab the knife, and as he goes under there, a freaking alien hand pops up and he cuts its fingers off. Okay. He then proceeds to go back to the house and talks to his family, by which all of them are mortified on the fact that the aliens are possibly hostile, and not only that, but they're able to produce camouflage. And something I forgot to mention earlier is the son and daughter, they have their book, and they have like tinfoil hats on, and they have a moment where Mel Gibson, who is reluctant and just uninterested by what they're reading, proceeds to look at the book. And this was, I don't know if they were trying to do something, but it was just really odd because they come across a picture that looks exactly like the house that they used for this movie, and an alien ship burning it, while on the ground are 3 people dead, most likely. So it's interesting to say the least, like what they were trying to go with, but whatever. I'm tired. Freaking I'm sorry. But what ends up happening? Oh, and something else too that I forgot to mention with the conversation with M. Night Shyamalan and Mel Gibson. He mentions the fact that they might not like water, so Mel Gibson proceeds to suggest that they go to a lake house, that they might be safe, but everybody else is reluctant. They don't want to move. That apparently the house reminds them a lot of their mom. So what they end up doing is grabbing spare wood and proceeding to nail down each window, every entryway, so the aliens can't get in. Oh man, I'm doing that a lot for this video. And I will say this next part is crazy, because what ends up happening is right after they get all the board set up, and I will say like slowly they start to do this where Mel Gibson starts to reminisce about when their kids were born, like the fact that his daughter didn't I guess smiled when she first was born, how there were complications with the son, and yet the son pretty much kind of reminiscing and trying to ease the kids' minds in terms of what happened or what's going on, because they find out too that apparently the crop circles were being used as navigation for the aliens, and that the aliens were landing at a mile away from the crop circles. And sure enough, yeah, they have a crop circle, so they would be a mile away from their location. So what ends up happening is they get all the boards down, and they get to the front room. Now, I will say, for the most part, one thing that this movie does really well is the whole show don't tell, or at the very least, I mean, you do see the briefly earlier in the movie, but when it comes to or at least don't show in this case, where they're all in the front room and they hear noises coming from outside, and it's first the dog barking, and then all of a sudden the dog's killed, and you hear something moving around the house, and the camera pans to the walls of the house, and you hear all these noises outside, seeing what's going on, and you hear something upstairs, and then all of a sudden you find out that they forgot the attic door. Now this is another I will mention another deleted scene where Joaquin Phoenix's character goes up and starts trying to hold the door down, about to sacrifice himself, and Mel Gibson gives this speech and ends up kind of comforting him and trying to gets him to stop. So what they proceed to do is they go into, like, after being comforted, they end up going into the basement, by which, or is it the cellar? Either way, they go down, and they end up having to lock themselves into one room, where pretty much the door is that only way in and out. So they block it off, and what ends up happening is another moment where I guess they show the intelligence of the aliens, where apparently these aliens are able to, or at least are very good problem solvers, and they would find any possible way to get into the building. So what Mel and Joaquin Phoenix do is look around to see if there was a coal shaft, and sure enough, they find it. But the sun is standing right there, and an alien hand is poking out and proceeds to grab him. Now, after that, they're able to block off that coal shaft, and there's another really good moment where the kid, and we find out early on that the kid has asthma, and Mel is trying to comfort his son. Now, there's this, within the dialogue for this, there's a quick moment where you see what he's going through, where this entire time he wasn't trying to acknowledge God, but sure enough, he does acknowledge him here. Be like, oh, I was trying to ignore you, but just understand that with what you've taken from me, I hate you so much. And this kind of upsets Joaquin Phoenix's character a little bit. And the next morning, we follow up with Joaquin listening to the radio. And apparently, the aliens leaving. Which, in some sense, confuses them, considering that the aliens were landing everywhere. And they find out that apparently the aliens were killing people with poisonous gas. Not sure how it's administered, but they at this point think they're safe, because the aliens, they think they're all gone. They check the baby monitor, nothing, and proceed to go upstairs. They put the son down, and Mel Gibson proceeds to grab the TV, and when he pulls it out, the reflection of the TV shows the alien holding the son. And at this point, everybody is like, what to do, because the alien has the son in hand, and Mel proceeds to flash back to the last moments he had with his wife, who apparently was pinned down by the truck that M. Night Shyamalan's character was driving. And for a brief moment, she says a few quotes that did make sense to Mel now, but does make sense to him, but makes sense to him now, where she says, "Swing away," and he looks around and sees a bat that Joaquin Phoenix's character had put on display. So Joaquin Phoenix then proceeds to grab the bat. The alien gasses the son, and Mel Gibson grabs the son while Joaquin Phoenix beats the living shit out of the alien. Now, earlier on I mentioned that the daughter had a bunch of quirks, and one of them in particular was apparently like having a bunch of water glasses, drinking out of one, and then leaving the glass at a random point. Apparently this was another miracle, so to speak, for our characters, because apparently it turns out that the aliens don't like water. And not only do they not like water, but it's pretty much like acid to them. So Mel proceeds to use this to his advantage, because their entire house is littered with cups of water. So they proceed to, using his bat, proceed to freaking spray the alien with water. And eventually he does take it down, and water is poured on its face from on top of a counter, and the alien dies. Right after that, all of our characters are around the son, who is not breathing, and Mel is trying to resuscitate him. And sure enough, he does. After regaining his faith, so to speak. And with the last shot of the movie, Mel is in his Reverend Father outfit, And I love, and I will say that one good shot is it starts off with one side of the room, I'm assuming Mel's room, where it's full of the destruction, the aftermath of the invasion, panning off, and instead of it being like, I'm assuming spring or summer, it's now winter, it's snowing, and it pans off to his bathroom, and you see him in his reverend getup, and walks off screen, and it fades to black. Now, I will say, when it comes to this movie, there were a few issues, okay? One, the freaking... I will say definitely the freaking recruiter is fucking creepy. He was one of those characters that was, like, kind of unnecessary. Some of the dialogue, unnecessary dialogue, made no sense. The fact that I have to agree with a nostalgia critic, the fact that an alien race can't get through pantry doors. But all in all, it was, I will say, a very intriguing movie, and probably one of the first movies I had with my quote-unquote M. Night Shyamalan collection. So, all in all, good film, and can't wait to talk about others. Alright, so I think I'm going to go ahead and end this video. I think I've said what I needed to say about at least giving my thoughts and recalling the movie. So, thank you guys for watching. Truly appreciate it. If you have anything you'd like to add to the conversation, leave in the comments down below. Like, share, subscribe, all the good stuff. If you guys want to follow us on social media, links are in the description. If you guys want to follow MJ, Aden, and Magi with their streams, they usually stream on Twitch and YouTube. Want to follow some of our other content. Some of the content I produce is uploaded or premiered in between midnight to noon Pacific time. If you guys want to follow our podcast, that is usually at 6 p.m. Pacific time. With all that being said, this is Rob of Novakast signing off. Have a good one, and take care. Peace.